Well, not
And
an
a few Kohanim too, but mostly Levium.
They definitely Levi tribe. Levi
We need some more.
All right, we are in Siman Reish Sadi. So Siman Reish Sadi, we learned last week Sif Aleph about the importance of striving to make it to 100 brachos, which is a goal for every day, but more complicated on Shabbos. So we talked about that. We talked about how are you, Shlomo? We talked about taking a nap on Shabbos, if that's an oneg for you. Yeah, Reish Sadi. It'll be the other side of the sheet. Yeah, that's sort of the back side now. Yeah. You see where
it's mixed between what we have.
Yeah, it's
Reish Sadi, yeah. See it? Should be towards the front. Okay. So
I don't need
those were the things we talked about last week, and then we read Sif Beis in the Shulchan Aruch. We didn't get all the way through Mishnah Berurah's comments, but we'll do that now. But just to remind us where we were, that after one finishes Suda Shachris, so again Sif Beis, you finish your morning meal. Kovid Midrash Likros Banavim, V'Lidrash B'Divrei Agada. You're supposed to make time for time in the sort of the Beit Midrash, time for learning to read Navi, to be Dorish, to like expound upon the words of Agada, which is like the stories, the Midrashim, which teach us sort of life lessons. And you're not allowed to set aside time for establishing a meal during that time. And then we mentioned in the Ramah that did we read the Ramah? I don't know if we read it, but let's read it quickly now. So the Ramah here, then we'll go back into the Mishnah Berurah on the comments of the Shulchan Aruch. Ufolim ubalei batim she'en oskim b'Torah kol yimei hashavua yasku Yosef b'Torah b'Shabbos mitalmidei chachamim ha'oskim b'Torah kol yimei hashavua v'talmidei chachamim yamshichu Yosef be'oneg achilu u'shtisiya u'ksas dehare hey mitzangi v'limudem kol yimei hashavua. So what he says here, the Ramah just throws in that workers and balei batim, which is like people who are working hard, who are not Torah scholars, who are not busy like learning Torah all week long, should be osek in more Torah on Shabbos. That's when they have more time, more than the Talmidei Chachamim, more than the people who are learning during the week. So for them, the Talmidei Chachamim, they should spend Shabbos a little bit more into their eating and drinking and enjoying the pleasures of life, because all week long they're busy anyways with learning. So for the average person, Shabbos is the time when you should engage in some extra Torah, because it's not something that is usually available to us during the work week. Okay, that's that Ramah. Now let's go back to the Mishnah Berurah here. We were up to Sif Hey, I believe. Sif Katan Ham, excuse me. Okay, so here he's commenting on after eating. And by the way, the Ramah here the Aruch HaShulchan throws in his formulation of it. He says in Sif Katan Beis, V'achar Suda Shachris V'achar Hashena. He throws in. He wants to combine what was in Sif Aleph. He goes after you eat the meal and you take a nap. Okay, if you usually take a nap, take your nap after lunch. So you have your lunch, your nap, and then he says, then you go to the shear, to the whatever, to the learning that's going on. Yes, here.
What if you take too long of a nap that you don't have?
He's going to address it. He's going to address it. Excellent question. Good.
Excuse me, Rav, are you by Bays?
Sif Katan Hey, yeah. Bays, Sif Katan.
Okay. Okay.
I work too well in the winter though.
Right. That's what Yair's question is, like, what happens if your nap is too long? And the winter time, you end up and it's like
5 o'clock.
it's already mincha, right? So yes, absolutely a problem that we're gonna touch. The Mishnah Berurah is gonna touch on your question, so we'll get there. So he's gonna deal with your question. He's gonna answer it. Okay. So Sif Katan Hey, the Isa Midrash So there's a midrash here. Again, a lot of these things that we're learning right now are not like, full-fledged. I'm not saying it's not halacha, but like these are ideas. These are nice ideas. Like if a person didn't do certain things, like whatever. So this comes from the midrash. Look at this. The midrash says, "Amra Torah lifnei Hakadosh Baruch Hu." The Torah itself. Okay, the Torah said to Hakadosh Baruch Hu. Okay, it's the midrash. Okay, Ribono Shel Olam, Master of the universe. Yisrael Haaretz, when the Jewish people entered the land of Israel. Zeratz lecharmo v'zeratz l'sadeu. This one ran to his vineyard, and this one ran to his field. Ani matzah halai. I'm the Torah. What? No one's running to me. Like, what happened to me? What's going to be with me? Amar la yesh li zug shanim izaveg lach l'Shabbos shemo. Don't worry, I have a partner for you, and its name is Shabbos. Shehem betelim melachtam. Because on that day they're going to stop their work. They're going to put down their plow, whatever their tools, and they are going to be learning you. So don't worry, Torah. Shabbos is the day that you'll be learning, because everyone's busy Sunday through Friday, work. If I don't work, by the way, in a very serious way, if I don't work, nothing will grow in the field. Nothing will grow in the vineyard. It's very nice that people can learn Torah, but most people can't do that. You have to earn a living. You have to, society needs, particularly, in an agricultural and agrarian society, you sort of rely on the farmers not just for your own sustenance. They don't rely on them just for their own sustenance, but the community, the greater kahal needs you. Okay, so this is that midrash. So this is the idea of learning on Shabbos. Actually, this fits more the Ramah's point, which is like the people who work hard all day long. The time for Torah learning is Shabbos. Sifkat on Vav. V'lidrosh v'chulei. Va'ikar yeh az l'lamed l'rabim es chukei ha'elokim v'es torosav. And the essential thing that they should be learning, that they should be teaching, that should be taught to the hamonam, to the general public, are the laws of HaKadosh Baruch Hu and his Torah and his ways, particularly lahoros Hilchot Shabbat, v'ha'asar v'hamuter, to teach Hilchot Shabbat, what's prohibited, what is permitted. Okay, so we should move the shir to Shabbos, by the way. But then our friends on Zoom wouldn't be able to listen. This is a problem, so we have to keep it on Sundays. So he says, learn Hilchot Shabbat. This is happening, by the way. Of all the halachas you can learn, this is the one that happens every single week, and it's not so straightforward. And okay. But also, so you learn a Hilchot Shabbos. The rabbi should get up in the shul and then doresh on Hilchot Shabbos. And also lahamshich lev hashon ba'agada, and to pull their hearts of the listeners with agada, with midrashim, with ideas that speak to the heart, that speak to a person's life. Okay, we are a little bit more familiar with this. This is sort of like what happens on Shabbos morning in most shuls when the rabbi gives a drasha, right? It's supposed to pull you hamadrichim es ha'adam liyiras shamayim, to live a life of yiras shamayim, of a heaven-fearing life. It leads us in that way. Uchadeisa b'yalkut reish perek vayakel parashas vayakel. Now, what's the context here? Parshas Vayakel. How does it start? Vayakel Moshe. It's called Adas B'nai Israel. And what does he say to them when he gathers them? I remember the beginning of Parshas Vayakel. It's about good. 6 days you're going to work. On the 7th day you're going to rest. And that's where it comes up, the one malacha that's mentioned in all of Shabbos, the third pasuk in the parsha. That is the context of the beginning of Vayakel. And the rest of Vayakel is the construction of the Mishkan. And that's where we learn because of the juxtaposition, that the things you can't do on Shabbos are the things that they had to stop, that they did in the Mishkan, but they had to stop doing on Shabbos. Okay? So this is why this midrash is at the beginning of Parshas Vayakel. It's important to understand that little context. So Amar Kadosh Baruch Hu LeMoshe, Aseh lecha kehilos gedolos udrosh lifneim barabim Hilchot Shabbos v'chulei. How do we know that you should talk about Hilchot Shabbos when you get to everybody together? Well, when is everybody free? Everyone's free on Shabbos. And when it was the only time in the Torah that it says, or at least the first time it says Vayakel Moshe. And Ashas Vayidaber Hashem Vayidaber Moshe el Bnei Israel. The first time is Parshas Vayakel, and the first time he gathers the people. He talks about Shabbos. That's the midrash. That's pshat. That's the midrash. That's what it starts in the realm of pshat, because the first time Vayakel, that terminology of gather everyone together, is a time when Moshe speaks to the people about Shabbos. And so the midrash here says this becomes the paradigm for gathering people together and learning about Shabbos. So he says, gather kehilos gedolos udrosh lifnei, gather big groups together and expound in front of them in the public realm Hilchot Shabbat, the laws of Shabbos, v'chulei lahoros liyisrael isser v'heter, to teach them what is allowed and what's not allowed, etc. V'lo kemo shenogim achshav, not like they do today. Today, I'm not even sure what, and I tried to look this up. I'm not sure who is he taking a shot here at something. Like what are they learning in the afternoons that it's not Hilchot Shabbos. But it seems to be not like whatever they're doing, and this comes, he cites this from the Bach and the Magen Avraham. I don't know what was the custom. The Mishnah Berurah? The Mishnah Berurah, he passes in the year 1933. He writes this at the turn of the century.
Late 1800s, early 1900s.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, it's a little over. It's 120 something years now.
It says just like we do these days.
Yeah, though he seems to be also quoting the low kamo shenogim achshav. He seems to also be quoting some earlier achronim, like the Magen Avraham, who was in the 1700s. Anywho, so we have here that this is really, we're supposed to do learning about Shabbos, but it sounds like that's not what people are doing. The Aruch HaShulchan doesn't really mention the whole part about the lo nogin, etc. He mentions this Medrash Tanchuma on Parshas Vayakel that was summarized here. But there he expounds on the Medrash a little bit more, which is that make big kehilos right now, Moshe, make big kehilos. So that they should learn Torah in the public sphere. That's the Medrash. It continues. You've sort of worked on you'll be crowned in my world, etc. It's a very positive thing to learn Torah on Shabbos afternoon. So that he doesn't expound more about that's not what people do. It sounds like people should learn. He doesn't, he doesn't actually mention the particular piece about learning Hilchot Shabbos. He doesn't get into that here. Interestingly enough, he just sort of says that you're learning Torah on Shabbos afternoon. Okay. Yeah.
Questions too, really. So one is, we're learning about. Or the section header is, so you have to complete 100 brachos, right?
Yeah.
It seems a little bit out of context, unless if it is inclusive of, because what we say the Birchas HaTorah, and maybe that's why this sort of fulfills, I don't know, somehow that. Or
maybe.
And the second question is, so the Ramah seems to imply, seems to emphasize balance more than learning Torah. He seems to imply if you're not learning Torah during the week, you should learn Torah on Shabbos. But if you're learning a lot of Torah in the week,
so lean more into
not so much worry about the other things.
Enjoy life a little bit.
It seems not like what I'm used to, where just like pushing Torah, like it really is talking a lot about balance and
correct,
equalize.
Yes, the things you do during the week, you have no time for Torah during the week, so make Torah time for this. So this is your time. That's that midrash.
Right.
But the people who they do all week long, why don't you spend a few minutes play Uno with your kid, and you'll eat and you'll do this and whatever, and it's about finding the balance. And not saying don't learn Torah at all. It's not saying nothing make it zero, but you should balance out what happens during the week with what you don't have time for, and make a little time for that on Shabbos. Yeah. Okay. So let's take a look at Sifkat on Zayin. Now, during the time, so by the way, I sidestepped your question about the title, but so the title, I wouldn't get too bogged down in it. because this seems like a little bit of like a miscellaneous category of the Kidder Halacha. Yeah, that of any extras or brachos you put it aside for learning Torah in the afternoon. But the time that is set aside for the shir in the shul on Shabbos afternoon, by the way, this should be, she said, of a big spike and uptick in Richie's shir this week after everyone listens on YouTube, all the whole shul, because that means they'll be making time, and they shouldn't be koveh anything else during that time of the Torah learning. Anyways, Sif Katan Zayin v'Asal Ligba v'Chulei. Ba Gemara Isa, in the Gemara it states. Okay, this is in Gittin. Okay, Bitchsayu. Plus is the Aramaic word for shalosh. There's many Aramaic words change from shin to taf, from the Hebrew to the in the Aramaic. Yes, I did teach you that rule, right? Right. So we have here tlos mile. There are three things that cause a balabas decrease, to go down, to remove from his possessions. Okay. So again, this is an agadic type of teaching. It's meant to teach you a lesson. I'm not saying that there's a 100% correlation that every time you don't do this, X happens. So it's for the rabbis teaching us a lesson here. So what's one of them? The Chad Minaihu, one of them, the Kave Seudasa Bishabsa Beidan Be Midrasha, that you established, you had a meal, you Kaveh Seuda, you sat down for a serious meal. Exactly. During the time when the shir is scheduled. Everyone else is in the base medrash, and you were koveya. Everyone come to my house for the gala shalashudas at 3 p.m. Okay? You were koveya suda at the time of the people are gathering for learning. That's going to decrease your possessions. V'ha'inyan Kedeisa b'Yerushalmi, and this is sort of discussed in the Yerushalmi, saying, okay, lo nisnu Shabbasos v'yarim tovim liyisrael ela kedei lasok b'hem b'Torah. Similar to what we talked before, that the Shabbos is only given for the Jewish people so they could engage, and Yomim Tovim, and holidays, so they could engage in Torah. The rest of the week they're busy with work. And they have no possibility of setting aside time for Torah during the week because they're sweating and they're toiling and it's too much. And on Shabbos they're free from their work, so they can actually engage in it the way Torah is meant to be learned. Sit there and get into it and listen and toil over the Torah. So therefore it is prohibited, strong words, prohibited to free oneself from the words of Torah, to turn away oneself from the words of Torah, and set a meal at a time when there's the drasha is being given in the base medrash, the shir is getting given in the base medrash to the public. Not that somebody had a private shir, learning groups in the afternoon. No one said, okay, if this is not the learning group you're in. No one said you have to stop learning when they are learning because the learning group is going on. That's 5 guys, 5 men, 5 women got together and they're making a shir. Okay, that's their thing. But when there's a shir in shul, you shouldn't be koveya seuda at that time on Shabbos afternoon. Ella yakdim osa uyacher osa. Push the meal up, make the meal a little later, make time for the shir. Okay? V'zeu tochachas megula leosan ha'anashim shemitaylin be'ei sahi b'shvakim u'varachovos. And he says this is explicit rebuke against those people who take walks at that time. Dafka, at that time, they're walking out on the streets, in the marketplace, and in the streets, the rabbi's giving a drasha right inside. And they're walking right by the window, waving to all the friends inside. You can't even be Kovea Suda Shabbos at that time, which is a mitzvah on Shabbos. And it's also to have during the time when the drasha is happening. V'chol shekain l'tayel laharbos as b'sicha v'tela she'aser. And all the more so to take a walk and which is just you're talking. I'm not saying it's not important to have conversations with a spouse or friends or whatever, but it's a sicha b'tela. What does it add up to in the end? It's what's the word I'm saying? Sicha b'tela. It's like frivolous. That's the word. A frivolous conversation. For sure, that should be usher if Torah. If being kovea suda on Shabbos, which again is a mitzvah, is also during that time. Certainly, it should be usher to have a frivolous conversation on a walk during that exact time. Take the walk earlier, take the walk later. Now, let's also put a little bit of context to this. In the days of yore, the rabbi didn't give a drasha in the morning. That was absolutely not something that happened. The rabbi didn't get up and he's not doresh. When did that change? I'm not exactly sure. Maybe there are those who were on the table who are done some research on it. I don't remember when that became popular, but it became popular at a certain point. Certainly here in America, to give the drasha because that's when the people were coming. They weren't coming at another time. By the way, you see a little hint of that here in our shul. It's interesting. When I came here, I was surprised the first year. I was like, wait, the Shabbos Shuva drasha is in the morning. Like I'm like the rabbi, rabbi like the Shabbos Shuva is always in the afternoon. What do you mean? Like you come back before mincha, maybe between mincha marv, before mincha. It's in the afternoon. Here was like I was like really surprised. And I remember Marsh saying like, oh, but that's when the people are really here. So you have a little bit of a hint to that. Like I don't know. It sounds like there used to be that it was in the afternoon here. It used to be, but it wasn't so well attended, from what I understand.
You gotta walk a mile and each
Right. Yeah, but not a judgmental statement, but like so you felt like okay, I should do it in the morning when people are there. That's sort of why I think the drasha in general has, in shuls all over, has become a morning thing. Because the time really for Torah learning, if you really read the Gemara very carefully, if you sort of learn all the sources, is really the afternoon. That's why. And then 2 Shabbos a year, he had to give the drasha. He had he was forced to give the drasha. Shabbos Shuva and Shabbos Hagadol, right?
Right.
But maybe he gave the drasha most weeks. But those weeks he had to come locked and loaded with ready to speak to the public. But anyways, so it could be that today the thing that people need to hear is the drasha. Right, that's the Torah learning. Like, I'm not saying you shouldn't come to the shir in the afternoon. By the way, big plug, right? Come to the Pirkei Avos shir in the afternoon. It's important to be kovei a time to learn Torah on Shabbos. It really, really is, and probably for the hamonam, for the majority of people. By the way, I remember someone saying this. I don't remember who said this to me, but I must have been in smicha. He said that the drasha is so important. Maybe it was the rabbi in my shul. I don't remember because. Just like in this shul, by the way, here, I was surprised that the shul also had this like this. In my shul, I remember the rabbi switched the drasha slot to after Musaf. And here we do that too. But in most shuls, the drasha is before Musaf, right? Most shuls. Yeah, and I remember like, wow, this shul does the same thing. I remember that at least it was my rabbi said, like, I want people to be there for the drasha because it's the only Torah learning for most people during the week. It's the 15 minutes that they're going to learn something that's the Torah for most people. Some people will take the time and learn, but he said, if you're the rabbi of the shul, he pushes the drasha later because if that's the only thing they're going to learn, I don't want them to miss it. I don't want them to miss the drasha. It's the only Torah they're going to learn that week. So,
By the way, Rav,
yeah, Simeon.
in my early years, when the Shabbos Hagadol and Shabbos Shuva drashas were given, they were given before Mincha on Shabbos in Yiddish, and before the rabbi gave them, he put on a tallis.
So it's interesting. In my shul where we grew up, the rabbi put on a tallis, for the Shabbos Shuva and Shabbos Hagadol drasha. Yeah, because there was certain chashivas to it.
Yeah.
He put a tallis on. That's funny. I've seen that. That was in my shul. Okay. Anyway, so my point is like today, in our shul, again, so Richie gives the shir on Shabbos afternoon. That it's not like aside from that, there's not like there's a specific set time that there's like there's a drasha happening, that there's like an expounding, there's a shir, there's a something. aside from that's choshev. We should be machshiv that. But in a lot of shuls also, like, it's not like there's daf yomi in the afternoon Shabbos. It's not like every shul. I'm like thinking about like in Israel with me, like when my in-laws when I was there some weeks ago, right? There's the various mincha minyanim, and then there's before there's a daf yomi before the one of the mincha, But like, if you're not doing daf yomi, then that's not the shir you're going to go to. So it's not always. It's I want to be clear. Like, it's not like we have such a hard and steady fast rule like this of this today, like in many shuls. I'm sure in some places there is a shir, steady shir. Like we have, on Shabbos afternoon, and maybe you might want to make this claim that it's not kedai to be to have a meal during that time. Okay, Siv Katan Ches Seuda be'os Hashah. Okay, Velechol bli kviyos Seuda. What if we want to eat without making you mean kovei Seuda? Want to have a snack of chips and pretzels, and maybe they'll put it out at the shir. By the way, they'll put out the chips and the pretzels and the coffee at the shir. Right? Kamosharog will be a most. Now here it's interesting. Do you guys have a note in yours?
Yeah. Oh.
I have the same edition as you. Do you guys have this? So I have in my edition that this shouldn't say be a most hashabbos, that it should say be a most hashavua. That it's probably an error. Because if you translate it literally, well, it's written and you could eat without being kovei suda like you do normally during the Yemos HaShabbos doesn't make sense. The Yemos HaShabbos would mean like the days of Shabbos. So in my edition it says Tiklon B'Yemos HaShavua. But
I have that.
you're right. But here he means the weekday, like the way we use Shabbos as in a week. Think about it, right, correct. But the word here, Shabbos, means week. Don't think it means Shabbos as in the day. Okay? Kolomar. So maybe it's not a mistake. It's just wanted to clarify here. Okay?
Right.
Here he's saying that the word Shabbos just refers to a week. Right? Yeah. So what about if I eat like during the week? Many of us, we're not kovei suda, by the way. I'm sure there are others around the table who do this. This young man here can confirm this, that many times his parents, when they eat dinner, don't actually sit down. That they were standing, standing around the counter, eating kind of what we hand to the kids.
Oh yeah.
But that's sometimes is
On the weekday, not shop.
exactly. So sometimes we're not always kovei suda, like we sit down or whatever.
Yeah, but why does it say Shabbos, not Shabbat?
So the word Shabbos can be used as in the
like for what?
there are times and usages in that was what Richie was pointing out. Exactly. So there are times when in the Tanakh, I think also the word Shabbos can refer to.
Yes, but Rob, that's a very poor choice here because it not only says Shabbos, but it says HaShabbos, which precedes it with the Hey HaYediyah, which is
right.
the
You might have thought it
Sabbath.
was about the day of Shabbos.
So
Right.
it's poor. The note is very efficacious. It's a good point.
Yeah. So he says here, near a Shemutar, maybe it should be okay to snack though, while they're having the shir. Okay, as it says in Simon Reish Mem Tet, basically in Erev Shabbos. Remember, on Erev Shabbos, you also can't eat kovei suda right before Shabbos, but you can snack. Okay, if you want to snack on some food before Shabbos, fine, but you can't sit down and have a big meal, an hour, 2 hours before Shabbos starts. Okay? Since the reason they said you can't be kovei suda because you're going to be mevatel Torah, you're not going to go to the shir. Fine, you can have your snacks, but that shouldn't be the reason you're mevatel Torah, right? The mevatel Talmud Torah barabim. You're going masha matzah, but avonosin haram la'ezah anashim shemizarzim la'olam b'Shabbos b'kayitz af she'od hayom gadol hispal mincha l'kaim ha'suda shlishis. So he says here, just in general, again, the reason here for this whole prohibition against being kovei suda is that you're not mevatel Torah. So just in general, it means just like we said, you shouldn't take a walk during that time. You shouldn't. So too, you should make sure that if there's people are doing doresh barab, there's a public shir that's going on. People should be very careful that not to do even things that you might think are halachically preferred. So he gives an example here. Like we find commonly, unfortunately, amongst our many iniquities, there are some people who mizarzim. They want to hurry, particularly in the summertime on Shabbos, even though there's a whole afternoon in the summer, right? Mincha yesterday was like around 8 o'clock or something like that. There's a whole summer afternoon. They want to be mispal mincha l'kaim hasudash l'shis. They're like, it's 2 o'clock. Mincha, yalla, mincha, and then we have to eat shalashus. It's 2:30 already. Okay, v'gormim shekol anshe beis midrash yafsiku milimudon. What's going to happen? Now this is not our situation, right? The people who are in the base medrash, which is also where they daven, they're saying they're having their chavrusa, they're learning, they're oskim b'talmud Torah, and then somebody gives a clap on the shender, ashrei yoshrei v'secha, and they're like, I'm in the middle of learning the daf gemara. What are you making me crazy? And now I have to stop because you're davening mincha. So they give a clap, and that's the place where everyone davens. It's not like nowadays, we have we take it for granted, like even in our shul, it's about to go through a upgrade or whatever. Here we have a library and we have a social hall and we have. You didn't think what they had? They had a base medrash. Everyone davened and learned in the same place, right? They had multiple. Can you imagine the shtetl in Europe? They didn't have, multiple, places of learning. One place. You daven, you learn there. So the guy who goes claps on the shender, ashrei. Suddenly that ruins everybody else's learning experience. Right now I have to answer a Kaddish, I have to Kedusha, I can't be loud, I probably should daven with you, honestly, while you're davening. So it causes many people who are learning to stop their learning. Ukvar Amru Chazal, and Chazal already said in Second Shabbos, Amar Rabbi Yossi, Yehechalki mi Moshive Beis HaMidrash, v'lo mi Amidei Beis HaMidrash. May my portion be amongst those who are the dwellers of the base medrash, and not those who are of the me. Now here's an important word. Ma'amidei means the causers of the. I am a stander upper of the base medrash. I cause people to get up, right? Instead of causing people to kind of sit down in the base medrash and engage in what's going on, I'm causing people to get up and and they're leaving. And this gets back to your question here that you asked about, 20 or so minutes ago. Unless the reason I'm giving a clap, ashrei, is because we're running out of time, folks. We need to have mincha. I know everyone's busy with their learning, and the shir is great, and we're enjoying the shir. But yalla, there's 10 minutes till shkia, and we have to lane also. So we have to we don't have time.
So that's his question. It sounds now
correct. Like
that it's the afternoon. You have to.
If it's if a winter, so good. So let's be medayik. If it's a winter afternoon where a mincha on a typical week, we'll call here for usually like a 4:05, 4 o'clock sometimes. For mincha on Shabbos afternoon here. In if the usual shir is at 3:30. Right. By the way, in the winter, I know now that we don't have a shir in the winter because it's hard. People find it very hard to come back because it's so soon after lunch, and lunch is here in the community. Whatever, maybe not just here. Like they take some time. They drag on a little bit. So, imagine if there was a shir though at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and it's still 4 o'clock, and everyone's going, hey, Rabbi Klinger, By the way, I've seen this before. I've seen this movie. But sometimes we'll have a guest speaker before Mincha on Shabbos, and people are like, it goes a few minutes over, and people are coming, like, you gotta stop him. You gotta Mincha. I'm like, okay, he's almost done. Give him another 2 minutes. Because people are like, they want to come on, and I get it by the way, because also they want to wash for Shalashudas. I hope this is the reason of it. Rather, I'm not saying it. They want to wash for Shalashudas before Shkia, and they want to be Makayim Shalashudas. So he says, if that's the case, give the clap, no problem. Then you can interrupt people's learning, because then, as the father, Nachon Lazarez was there. Okay, he shouldn't have a long drasha that ends up there. You don't have shalosh shudas as a result. That's a mistake. So then you got to stop the shir. Okay, so that is Sif. Sorry, that is Simon Reish Tzadi. that again, in our situation, in our day and age, I think the most important thing is really. And by the way, sorry, let me just finish that. I'll read the Aruch HaShulchan. The most important thing is here that we should try to make some time for Torah on Shabbos. So again, here in the shul we have a shir right before Mincha in this time, this spring and summer, right? So it's an opportunity to Richie gives a Pirkei Avos shir, and it's an opportunity to learn. And if that's not that, something else, something you should have some Talmud Torah on Shabbos afternoon because it's a day that's meant for that. That's what that Medrash is talking about. Now, just to really give now I'm going to make Richie feel really good about giving the shir on Shabbos afternoon. The Aruch HaShulchan says. He says, "V'chein haminag etzleinu shehalimud v'hadrashos heim ad mincha v'achar mincha holchim lechol hasuda shlishis." That's the minhag. He says that there was already a minhag in his time that the limud and the drasha, the learning that happened was right up until mincha. That they would do it right before mincha. The shir slot was right before mincha, and then afterwards they daven mincha, and they would go. Then they would eat shalosh shudas after. Now that's going to become a topic that we're about to start right now of shalosh shudas. That is going to be the big question about when should you eat shalosh shudas? Should it be before or after you daven mincha? We will get to that. It's machlokas. Obviously, in the shul we put out shalosh shudas after, but there are going to be two opinions to this one. But anyway, so that's the Reish Tzadi. Hope that it was meaningful. Now we move on to Reish Tzadi Aleph for about 10 more minutes. Okay, this talks now. This is the title here: Din Shalosh Seudos. All right, the law of 3 meals, and particularly the focus is going to be on the third meal here. Okay, and this is it's not the shortest thing, it's not the longest one, so we'll spend a little bit of time on this between now and Rosh Hashanah. Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. There you go. It's coming up before you know. And by the way, actually, a very important question that will come up on Rosh Hashanah and then on Sukkot and then on Shmini Atzeres is how you're Makayim Shalosh Shudas when it's also an Erev Chag again. And how do you have a Shalosh Shudas when you're not supposed to really, before Erev Yom Tov, you're not supposed to have a big meal. Mm-hmm. So we'll talk about that question too before we get to that practical question in a few weeks. Fifth Aleph. Now I love this sentence. It comes from the Gemara in Masechah Shabbos, and it's a non-halachic statement, but yet was included in a halachic sefer. So you have to think about why. So the Shulchan Aruch starts by saying, "Yehezar me'od l'kayim sudash lishis." You should be very careful to be makayim to fulfill the mitzvah of shalosh shudas. It's not a halachic statement. That's the thing. Do the mitzvah, right? So.
We had a break between it. We had
many shuls will put out. Yeah. Now, why did he say this? So let's take a look here at the Mishnah Berurah. Okay, the Mishnah Berurah Sif Katan Aleph. Uchadisa b'Gemara. Yehei Zarmod. Uchadisa b'Gemara, as it states in the Gemara. A person is obligated to eat 3 meals on Shabbos. And it's
adjacent.
What's and it's like hinted to. It's like seen as somech means it's supported by, right? It's based on it's based on the verse that says. Right,
or we're reminded by a crow.
Right, it's like it's somech. It relies upon. It's dependent upon. It's like smicha. It leans upon. Right. Vayomer Moshe, ichluhu hayom. Right, Moshe said, ichluhu hayom. You should eat it today. What's the it? The man. Ki Shabbat hayom laHashem, because today is a day of rest to Hashem, to God. Hayom lo timsa'uhu basadeh. Today you won't find it. The who. By the way, it's very important when you're translating. Who at the end of the word in biblical Hebrew means him or it. Okay. By the way, another place that comes up is it comes up by the way, all the time in the biblical text. But like by Korban Pesach, al matzot umarorim yochluhu. You should eat it the Korban Pesach. On matzah mar Anyway, so I'm just saying, like, that's an important grammatical point I just wanted to make. So the it here is the man. You won't find it in the field. So here, what do we learn? The Gemara, this is a drasha from the Gemara. Utlasa hayom kasu b'krozeh. The word hayom appears 3 times in that pasuk. Okay, as he's describing the man. Okay, the Amru Chazal kol hamakayim shalosh seudos b'shav. So that's where 3 hayoms teach us that we should engage in a meal. He's talking about, right, eating it today, because today is Shabbos to Hashem, and today you won't find it in the meal. That today, which is repeated, and it's sort of almost like he's hinting towards something, is where he says here, the Chazal say, kol makayim shalosh seudos b'Shabbos nitzol mishalosh puranuyos. If you fulfill 3 meals, you have 3 meals on Shabbos, it saves you from 3 potential punishments. Okay, number 1, mechevlo shel Mashiach, from the pain of Mashiach. That Mashiach doesn't come through something simple. Mashiach will come through a really difficult, sort of tragic period. But if you mekayim shalashudas, you won't suffer from that. Now, where do we have reference to mechevlo shel Mashiach? Okay, so if you ever sing the Zemer on very good mechevle Mashiach yutzalu lirvacha, it's a reference to this medrash. Okay, to this idea that if you engage in shalashudas in 3 meals, you won't suffer the pains of that come along with the time of Mashiach. Okay, so now you know where where the Paitan got that from in the
is just protecting.
It's protecting, right? Yeah. Okay, and then the second thing is Medina shel Gehinom, that it protects you from the judgment of Gehinom, of the lowly afterlife, that we might suffer. But if you have shalashudas is a big deal. That's why he's making this point, because the Chazal is trying to say it's so important. And number 3, Milchemes Gog uMagog, this end of days war between these 2 nations, Gog and Magog. You will be protected from this if you have shalashudas. Right, this is the greatest advertisement for shalashudas that should be out there. Right, Shenemar v'chulei, and quotes the pasuk. It comes from the pasuk that we just mentioned a moment ago. Ve'af le'ani ha'over mimakom lamakom, a poor person who's going from place to place, looking for probably parnasa, looking for where to collect. Sarech litein losh kol hashalosh seudos b'Shabbos. The community has an obligation to give this fellow all 3 meals on Shabbos, not just 2. There is a notion that maybe you should only give him 2, because they only used to have 2 meals on any given day. So that was what you would provide to a poor person, 2 meals. And so there are those who say if a person is so poor that they are afilu min atamchui, that they even eat from the soup kitchen. Every meal they have to go to the soup kitchen. They barely have a place to live, right? Then maybe they only need 2 meals because, they're not used to even having 3. Not even they're not even on their mind. So he says here that the standard poor person, you should give them all 3 meals on Shabbos. Is the first simon when we were back and during COVID, when we started learning Hilchot Shabbat on Zoom, if you all remember that. B'Mishnah Berurah, da'af b'shvil seudas shlishis kishemasig be'ezeh makom lilvos tzarich lilvos. If I need to take out a little bit of a loan if I need to borrow in order to have the shalashudas, take the loan. You borrow. Tzarich lilvos. Now, what's the last piece here I want to share about this sort of the hashkafic piece of shalashudas? So, where is this here? In the Aruch HaShulchan, he mentions this. Okay, so this is the point I wanted to make. Okay, so the Aruch HaShulchan right at the beginning, he says these v'ezar me'od l'kaim suda shlishis. Amar Chazal, they call him l'kaim suda shlishis. He told me mishalosh kuranos. He tells the Gemara that you're safe from these 3 things again. Shalashudas,
Oh, that's in the Gemara. These.
Oh, it's in the Gemara Shabbos. Kuf Ches, yeah. The Amar Rabbi Yossi, Chelki im mekayme shalosh tudos b'Shabbos. And so Rabbi Yossi is quoted as saying, "My portion is amongst those who are mekayim shalosh tudos." He's like, I want that. I don't want any of these bad things. And then he quotes the Levush here. This is a Rishon. The Levush writes, "Shehei min haTorah, kedechsiv tlas lahayom, ayin sham." He says this is on Torah level. He thinks this is it's a min haTorah that you have to have shalosh tudos. You have to have 3 meals. Because it's from the pasuk. Whenever it says hayom, so it's from the Torah. And then he said, close quote. Then our Chashulchan says, "V'im efshar she'ena mamish min haTorah." He says maybe it's not mamish min haTorah. Maybe it's just a smachta. It's like a hint in the text. Mikol makom vaday mitakanas Moshe Rabbeinu heim shekain kibel misinai. He says for sure this is one of those takanos that Moshe already put into place. Because he got this at Sinai. Vehe miramzim neged shlosha avos neged Torah neviim ksuvim ubishosh nitan lahem haman nitan lahem al shalosh seudos kidis mechelta shehevi kan hatur vehevinu leel v'sim reish ayin dal ayin sham. So he basically says this is already there are ramazim to this. He wanted that people to remember Avram Yitzchak Yaakov on Shabbos, or that the Torah of Ksuvim, whatever. Even I know Ksuvim didn't exist. I got you. But nonetheless, I think he's all saying that Moshe Rabbeinu was the one who said the pasuk with Hayom. It's his words. It's not like he's quoting God. Moshe Vayomer Moshe or Vayomer Moshe, and Moshe was the one who used the Hayom. So he says Moshe already must have made this takana, which means it's one of the earliest dinim derabanan out there. If it's not a din d'oraisa, he says this is an early din derabanan that Moshe Rabbeinu made the takana himself that you should have shalosh tudos. And then he ends by saying the Aruch HaShulchan again. This is how Chazal saw the importance of shalosh tudos. So we shouldn't just overlook shalosh tudos like I gotta put some tuna on my plate, That's why I keep saying we should have better shalosh tudos out here, right? We upgraded the kiddush. Why not the shalosh tudos? Udvarim gedolim v'noraim tlulim b'shalosh tudos. B'shalosh tudos elu muvurim bizar v'kar mekomos. He says it is a great and awesome things that many great and awesome things that are talui on shalosh tudos, on having 3 meals, and that 3rd meal you can't overlook it. And he says if you want more, go look in the Zohar. So if you want, there's either Kabbalah on this too. There's Kabbalah on this too. You'll see the Kabbalah. That I don't know, but anywho, he really makes a very big point here of being mekayim 3 meals. No, don't think that 3rd meal is a throwaway and you'll have a little whatever.
How come there's no wine or anything?
There's no kiddush. There's no.
Like you're saying it's so important.
Yes, you can drink wine. There's no obligation to make kiddush.
Saying like there's no bracha, there's nothing.
There's not like an obligation to make the bar gafen, right? Yeah. So it's a good point. It's not how it was established, but I grant you it's a good point.
Right.
So
By definition, it puts it on a lower level.
yeah, correct. It feels like you don't have to. The whole question is going to come up. We'll talk about this. Do you have to have lechem mishnah? No lechem mishnah. What if I don't want to have bread? Can I just have crackers? Can I have fruit? So we're going to talk about all these things. But at the end of the day, one shouldn't skip it. Sometimes, by the way, in the wintertime, this becomes more of a challenge because you just finished lunch. And one of the great lines that it's in Sif Aleph, and so we'll repeat it next time. But what's that? These famous words, and I can't tell you how many times Rabbeim, when they give a shir, they're giving tochacha, whatever, to the Talmidim, they use this phrase, which is hechacham eina v'rosho. If you're going to have to eat 2 meals and you have 4 hours until the shkia, because it's winter, the wise person, his eyes are on his head, and he thinks ahead. Meaning, like you think ahead, like maybe I shouldn't have a 6-course meal because I can't have shalosh tudos then. So it's a plan ahead kind of situation. So, that's a great phrase, by the way. If you ever want, hachacham einav v'rosho, his eyes are in his head, meaning you think before you do something.
What I do is after I see the prayer for Shabbat,
Yeah.
I maybe include, I don't know if it's the right way, but I maybe include the food that I eat on